The Ford government has recently announced plans to implement several changes to the Ontario education system, creating protests and pushback from both students and teachers across the province. Communications officer for Huron Superior Catholic District School Board, Jim Fitzpatrick, said that the board doesn't know yet if any teachers will be laid off next year. He said their staffing process differs from other boards and they haven't yet received any budget information and so have not begun the staffing process. President of Algoma Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, Lee Mason, said they're kind of dismayed and shocked at the announcements made by the government. He added that raising the class size caps dramatically in secondary and a little bit in elementary really has a huge impact on classrooms. Mason added that it's already happening to some degree. Small, isolated northern schools have been getting an increased instance of split or multiple grades in a school. Mason said that in a recent poll ETFO conducted, 67% of Ontarians supported smaller caps in grades 4 to 8. In smaller, more remote areas, it's not feasible to bus kids to create larger classes. Andrew Scheer asked the Liberals in question period again about when he'll get a chance to question Justin Trudeau in court over the Prime Minister's libel notice against the Conservative leader. Liberal House Leader Bardish Chagger says Scheer is making false statements and deleting tweets over his comments about the SNC Lavalin controversy.
Conservatives and, frankly, their leader have a history of making untrue and defamatory statements for political gains. In response to a lawyer's letter in December, the Conservative leader deleted tweets that were defamatory to the Minister of Innovation. We put him on notice again because there are consequences for making false statements. At his press conference, he's already refrained from repeating some of his false statements. He should not be misleading Canadians. But here is a question Canadians want to know from the leader of the official opposition. Has he deleted tweets since he received that notice?
No, I have not deleted tweets because I stand by everything I said in those statements.
Ontario drivers could soon see government-mandated stickers about the price of the carbon tax on gas pumps across the province as the Progressive Conservatives open a new front in their battle with Ottawa over the levy. The Environment and Energy Ministers made the announcement yesterday in one of the near-daily events the Ontario government has held to slam the tax since it was imposed 1 week ago. Ontario will introduce legislation that would require stickers to be put on gas pumps showing that the tax has added 4.4 cents a litre to the price of gasoline, and that will rise to 11 cents per litre by 2022. Each pump would be expected to display an English sticker and a French one. Energy Minister Greg Rickford framed it as a transparency measure. Rickford couldn't provide a cost for the move, but said it will be very minimal. The Liberal government is taking steps to stem the tide of asylum seekers who've been crossing into Canada from the U.S. at unofficial border crossings. Tucked into this year's 392-page omnibus budget bill is a provision that would prevent anyone who has made a refugee claim in certain other countries from making another claim in Canada. The provision applies to claims made in countries with which Canada has information sharing agreements. Only a handful of countries qualify. The United States, through which all of the irregular border crossers pass, is one of them. A spokesperson for Immigration Minister Ahmed Hussein said the change's primary effect is expected to be on people whose refugee claims have been rejected in the United States and who then try again in Canada. The language says that just having made a claim is enough to be rendered ineligible. The provision is based on the belief that Canada's refugee system is similar enough to that of the U.S. that anyone rejected there is likely to be rejected here as well. People deemed ineligible to make a claim in Canada will not necessarily be deported to their homelands, though. Officials say they will still undergo a pre-removal risk assessment to determine if it's safe to send them back to their countries of origin. New Democrat Nikki Ashton asked the Liberals why the government isn't funding the inaugural season of the National Arts Centre Indigenous Theatre. Gary Anandasangari Parliamentary Secretary to Heritage Minister Pablo Rodriguez only says the Liberals are working on reconciliation with Indigenous peoples.
The National Arts Centre asked the Liberals to fund an Indigenous theatre program to tell the stories of Indigenous peoples. Last week, it was announced that the Liberals denied funding again. Let's be clear, we're talking about the only national Indigenous theatre program in the world. But when asked, Heritage pointed out that the government already spent money on the NAC, clearly not understanding that investing in Indigenous arts and culture is not the same as renovations. So the question is, does this Liberal government look for new and creative ways to insult Indigenous peoples, or do they just come by them naturally?
After 10 years of Conservative cuts, we're making historic investments in our arts and our creators. We're investing in Indigenous cultures through Indigenous languages, the Indigenous Screen Office, the National Film Board, Telefilm Canada, the Canada Council for the Arts, and Indigenous festivals. We've also invested $225 million to renew the National Arts Centre. Together, we will continue to move towards reconciliation.